Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined as ever by Adrian, Clarke, and Mark O'Hare. And the guys have been on fire this season of 9 out of 12 podcast best bets, which is some going from the two of them. Let's hope they can keep that going into the next international break. And very briefly, Adrian, you were at the Arsenal away to Brentford last night. It's just non-stop football for you. You're constantly on the go, on the move. So
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't at the game. We did it for the show from the studio,
Emirates.
but it was but yeah, covering all the games. Yeah, it is all go. It really is. Yeah, got another one, Bournemouth at the weekend. But yeah, no, Arsenal ticking over, still unbeaten. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed last week. Some of the selections didn't come in for us. Probably one of our weaker weeks. So we're looking for a bounce back this time around. And yeah, I think we got some decent shouts to come.
Yeah, Mark, very briefly, how you found the season so far in terms of betting, in terms of am I coming up with new angles each week, or how are you going about it? Because it's just relentless football, I guess, in between the international breaks.
Yeah, I think it's been okay, or more than okay so far. Ordinarily August and September can be quite a tricky month for punters as teams kind of find themselves, new signings bed in. There's been a lot of change in the summer, etc. And you're trying to find patterns. You're trying to understand teams and the way in which they go about their business. But I feel relatively confident now that I've got a decent handle on all four of the top tiers in England. There's still a bit of work to be done outside of that in Europe, but midweeks like this, your focus will be on Arsenal, I presume, in the cup competitions. I like to just completely ignore it and invest all my focus on La Liga and Serie A, for example, so I get a good handle on, there's games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so I can grab a number of games and sort of kind of increase my knowledge that way. So yeah, it's all good fun, and then the Champions League rolls around next midweek, so busy times ahead.
Absolutely non-stop football. I think I read somewhere, I think the average changes from Premier League clubs in the EFL Cup was 7 to 8. So it just shows you there's a lot of rotation, but I guess they also have bigger squads, which I think sometimes gets lost in the grand scheme of things.
Good, just two, weren't
No,
they? I think for Brentford.
well, you told me they'd make 11 changes, Adrian. So I was quite confident.
They normally do.
Yeah.
Thomas Frank is the sort of manager, but I think they were so bad at Everton, and that was my best bet. Remember last week? That's one that got beat. I was fuming, absolutely fuming with Brentford because Everton had been so bad, and Brentford were really, really poor on the day. To their credit, Everton were excellent in the match. So yeah, I think it was a response from Frank to say, look, I was going to give you a rest, but I'm not going to do it anymore. And I think he also was probably thinking a cut run might build momentum. But yeah, no one would have seen that Everton win. I don't think it was most unexpected.
Yeah, and even the Villa game away from home as well. So 2 wins, and suddenly Sean Dyche and the Everton fan base are building up again, which is great to see. In fairness, great club. 4 games we're going to cover today: Aston Villa versus Brighton, Wolves versus Manchester City, Spurs versus Liverpool, Fulham versus Chelsea. As ever, check out descriptions if you want to skip to a section. Any other bets, EFL bets, best bets, long shots, that sort of thing. And all we ask, if you hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe completely for free, or if you're listening for the podcast, hit that 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll get straight into it. Really looking forward to this early kickoff here. Aston Villa versus Brighton. We'll take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com. You can back Aston Villa at 2.64, Brighton the exact same price. So coin flip here. Draw is 4.1. Both teams to score, yes, is very, very short here at around 1.45, and no is 2.92. The Asian handicap line is the draw no bet market. Villa, exactly a coin flip again, 199, 199, which is really good in terms of an over round there. And the total is 3.5, shaded a good bit towards the under. So, Adrian, kick off with this. I know you're both in slight disagreement on goals in terms of where exactly the line should be, but look, currently it's around 3.5 on Matchbook. Are you expecting goals in this game?
The stats will tell you it's going to be a goal fest. They will. I mean, the Premier League in general has been very, very high scoring, hasn't it? I think under 3.5 last season happened 68% of the time, but this season it's happening 54% of the time. So it's quite the shift. It's a big old shift. Is that all down to the added injury time? In part, it is for sure. Also, I think there's been some pretty ropey defending on show in the early weeks. It has been a goal fest. I do feel that sooner or later things will level out a little bit. Yeah, compared to last season, it might still be higher, but I think it's a little bit inflated at the moment. Every Brighton match has gone over 3.5, for example. 4 of 6 Villa matches have to. No clean sheets for the Seagulls. So look, I think for expected goals as well, if you look at the metrics, expected goals, Villa and Brighton are third and fourth, or Brighton and Villa are third and fourth. It's everything points towards goals here, but I think the line, I don't know. I'm looking at the price and thinking there might be a little bit more value in going under here, actually, under 3.5, because we need 4 goals to lose. And historically, you don't see that many matches go 4, 5, 6 goals in a game, do you? Most of them do dip under that. And I've looked at these 2 coaches. I've done a piece previewing it for the Premier League, and Emery's won the 2 matches against De Zerbi since coming in at Villa. He's won them both 2-1. So he's not got the measure of Brighton, but he has found a way to keep them quiet and to nullify them a bit. I do think that stylistically, Villa are a bad match for Brighton, who obviously want to lure teams onto them, to play around them, to then go and hurt them. Well, Villa won't do that. They won't engage on the edge of the box too often. They'll let them have it, and they'll wait until they get a little bit further up the pitch, and then they'll congest it in the middle third and look to win it, and then a break from there. Villa are statistically the best counter-attacking side in the Premier League this season. No one's had more shots than Villa. And Brighton, of course, we saw they've had that vulnerability to counters. West Ham exposed it, and a few other teams have had their moments. So, yeah, I think Villa are quite a good match. Match up quite well against Brighton. But, yeah, 2 decent teams. But when you get 2 coaches that are so thoughtful, so deep in their thinking, but also a little bit polar opposite, I do think that there is a danger that they'll overthink it, and it won't be quite as good a game as people expect. So that's where I'm leaning here. The stats will say this is going to be 3-1 or 3-2 either way. I personally think it's more likely to be a 2-1 or less. So I'm going to go under 3.5 and just go a little bit more towards the mean, the average over the last few seasons. Too many matches have been going over 3.5, and sooner or later that's going to dip.
Okay, under 3.5, currently 1.81. And Mark, I don't know if you're aware, but in the YouTube comments at the moment, there's a debate about what's Mark O'Hare's selection going to be in this game. A lot of people trying to predict here, so please keep that coming. And if you are listening back to the podcast, always check us. If you do want to join the live stream, it's always good fun. So,
hey,
Mark,
I'm
no
much
pressure.
the same. I'm exactly the same. Yeah, what's it going to be?
Well, I'm going to take the opposite route to Adrian. I appreciate that the price isn't something I would normally go down, but I think over 3.5 goals is worth a look at odds against. I did find this match quite difficult to decipher, really. I think on the first instance, you look at it and you just think goals. Both teams can contribute here, but the market is already on top of that. Over 2.5 goals is far too short. Chuck in BTTS, it's still way below 1.7. So you've got to be a little bit more inventive. I would have considered over 3.0 goals if that was possible, but this is the next best, really. So over 3.5 goals at 2.18 is where I've landed. Obviously, both coaches have been making a huge impact at their current club. But if you look at the Premier League table, it's something we've touched on recently. But if you look at the calendar year table of the Premier League, Man City are way clear at the top, 71 points earned in 2023. The next 4 teams are Arsenal on 55, Liverpool on 55, Aston Villa on 55, and Brighton on 53. So these are 2 very informed teams, very much, contesting there to be in the top 4 of the Premier League. So there is an obvious kind of clash of styles. The 2 teams do things a little bit differently, but neither are flawless. Both have a number of weapons at their disposal. They both have a very clear and consistent ideology and style and direction of travel. They're both very ambitious. And I just think we're going to be in for a really exciting, entertaining game here. So I don't really want to have to pick either team, really. I just think as a neutral, I want to support goals in this game. From a Brighton perspective, the numbers are overwhelming. They've started with 5 wins from 6, which is really impressive. The first non-Big 6 team to do so since Charlton in 2005, 2006. They're the top goal scorers in the league. We've talked consistently now how Brighton's expected goals output is bigger and better than any other side in the Premier League since Roberto De Zerbi was appointed, even better than Man City. It wasn't like De Zerbi was only appointed a couple of months ago. He's been in the gig for 12 months now. So long term, Brighton are just conjuring up just outrageous expected goals numbers. It's quite astonishing stuff, really. But also Aston Villa deserve utter respect when they play at Villa Park. 9 Premier League wins on the spin. They beat Brighton, as Adrian said here, at the back end of last season, 2-1. But yeah, I mean, you look at Villa at home, they're averaging 2.13 goals under Emery. 11 of those 15 games went over 2.5 goals. 9 of the 15 saw both teams scoring 3-1 and 4-0 in the first 2 games at Villa Park this season. Brighton's away days have been 3-1 and 4-1, but Brighton's away days under De Zerbi as a whole, averaging 3.78 goals. In those 18 games, 15 went over 2.5, 11 went over 3.5, 15 saw both teams scoring. And the numbers I like the best, Brighton have scored twice or more in 11 of those 18 away games. They've also conceded twice or more on 12 occasions as well. So, I can see a 3-1, a 2-2 either way. This bet, as Adrian has already outlined, has landed in 6 from 6 from Brighton this season, 4 from 6 for Aston Villa. So combined, you've got a 10 from 12 success rate. And expected goals-wise, Villa games are averaging 3.69. Brighton's 3.79. So I am expecting it to be fun, goal-filled, and therefore I've selected over 3.5 goals.
Okay, yeah. I can't pick a side here, to be honest.
Come on, you can go with goals. Go with
No,
goals. Go on.
absolutely not. Beware the early kickoff, Adrian. That's always in the back of my mind.
Do you know what? The thing I sort of talked about how Villa can hurt Brighton on the counter and turnovers, win it in the middle third and crowd them out there. But they do have that high line and Mitoma running in behind. And Brighton are very good, actually, at playing longer balls, aren't they? And I think that they do dice with it a little bit, Aston Villa. That said, they've kept quite a lot of clean sheets under Emery, haven't they? With Torres and Konsa have been pretty good this season. So, yeah, it's going to be a great game. I can't pick a winner. I think you have to take the goals route. So, but even that's a real tight call.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Stephen O'Leary here, saying he's staying well clear of this game. Stephen Hawking said never back to 12:30. I'm not sure exactly who made that quote now, to be honest. It might have been a little bit after his time, but it is some very funny memes about not backing the early kickoff. I think Gandhi is credited with it, mainly never back the early kickoff. But we got it right once when I think Mark was Palace Leicester, wasn't it? And I was warning you with the early kickoff and you wanted goals. So I've half converted Mark O'Hare.
Yeah, I haven't converted me at all.
I definitely haven't. You're spot on. So it's a no bet for me, but if you want either of the guys' selections, over 3.5, 2.18 for Mark O'Hare and around 1.8 for under 3.5 goals. It is a fascinating 12:30 game live on TNT. Second game, Wolves versus Manchester City, selection of Mark O'Hare. So we will take a look at the betting that we have on matchbook.com. You can back Wolves 10.5 in the 90-minute market, Manchester City 1.34. Draw is 6.0. Both teams to score, yes. 192 is favoured in that market. The Asian handicap line, evidently 1.5 goal head start for Wolves. And the goal line is 3.5, but that's 165 for the under. So a good bit shaded towards the under there, Mark. So, Mark, on this, I presume based on what you were saying there, you're taking little to no relevance in Manchester City's defeat to Newcastle there last night. Does it play any sort of part here? Because I know Pep Guardiola is complaining for the 4 away games in 11 days before the match, and it just feels he was very unhappy with the referee and based on very little, to be honest with you. So I just felt there was something that didn't quite go right for City as a whole last night.
No, I'm not taking any notice to what happened in midweek. I never do, to be honest. Maybe there is a point there in some of what Pep's saying in terms of tough away trips after each other consecutively, but that's about it, really. They've got more than enough quality to oversee a Wolves side, who I found quite hard to read, actually, this season. We all remember back to the opening weekend defeat against Man United. That lives long in the memory, but also the first half performance against Liverpool at Molineux immediately after the international break, where they were tremendous in that first 45 minutes. Both examples suggest that they can compete, they can cause Man City problems. However, there are plenty of negatives to suggest they might not. The second half against Liverpool, where they totally crumbled under they just weren't able to live with Liverpool's attacking ferocity, their intensity. Liverpool looked so open in that first half, and Klopp just doubled down at halftime. He made them even more front foot, and they went out and wiped the floor with Wolves in that second half. And they've continued. This is Wolves. They've continued that inability now to score fluently when chances are created. Even against Luton last weekend, the weakest team in the division. they were just desperately poor, lethargic, out of possession, lacked imagination in possession. Now Bellegarde's suspended as well, and he's made a positive impression. If you look at their season as a whole, their only league win came at Everton, and they were second best for the most part, or all of that match actually. They've lost all 4 fixtures against the current top half, conceding 3 goals or more in 3 of those 4 games. So I think even with Man City missing Rodri, even with Man City enduring a couple of consecutive away trips, they should have enough to see off a Wolves side who are 9-1 for a reason. I think replacing Rodri will be quite interesting. Matheus Nunes started as a central midfielder against Forest last weekend. Kovacic is due back from injury. He's got the ability to sit deeper in that role. There's also Calvin Phillips, of course. So it's not like they're lacking in that area. Obviously, Rodri is the best in the world in that position, but I think there are options elsewhere to make filling that void, fine really from a City perspective, who are 6 from 6. They have been fairly routine for the most part, bar maybe Sheffield United away. And if you look at their road record at bottom half teams, going back to the start of 2018-19, they have an 84% win rate. They've already beaten Burnley and the Blades relatively comfortably on the road this season. You'd expect Wolves to be in that sort of bottom 6, bottom 8 as well. So there's no reason why City can't do something similar in this particular fixture. So I backed Man City, going back to the well, going back to the old classic of Man City to win, and under 4.5 goals. It's landed in 5 of 6 City wins already this season. The game that it didn't, they scored 5 goals from just 7 shots against Fulham. So last season, 7 of their 9 wins against bottom half sides away from home came under 4.5 goals. In fact, 17 of their last 22 away trips to bottom half teams have seen this play pay out. So happy to kind of just routinely go through it again. So Man City to win and under 4.5 goals.
Yeah, Adrian, it does seem quite a jump from 134 on the match odds all the way to 181 and under 4.5 goals. You can see this game being tense for a while and maybe City pulling away in a 2-1.
That's why we picked it. Yeah, I think that's why we picked it, Dan. I've gone with exactly the same bet. Those numbers, all fantastic from Mark. The one I had is very similar. It wasn't looking at just bottom half teams. 12 of 14 City away wins since the start of last season. They've gone under 4.5. 12 out of 14 is a pretty good ratio, isn't it? I'll tell you what I was looking at. I was looking at actually a draw at half time, City win at full time, because Wolves have been very good in the first half of matches this season. The goal difference from 6 Wolves matches at half time is scored 1, conceded 1. I mean, so they've been really competitive in every game. And then honestly, it's just exploded in pretty much every second half, not always in the right way for Wolves. So that's a punt to consider if you wanted something different. Maybe draw half time, City at full time. But yeah, this feels right. They've raised their game, Wolves, no doubt about that. Their better performances have come in defeats to United, Liverpool, and Brighton. They are a bit open under Gary O'Neill compared to before. The Wolves have been boring and dull for years, haven't they? They are kind of better to watch now, but also more susceptible to giving up chances. 4th worst when it comes to shots faced. 5th worst in terms of expected goals against Wolves. Those aren't positions they've occupied in recent seasons because they've been far more solid and defensive in their approach. So, yeah, it could get away from them, but I don't think it'll get away from them to a big enough degree for City to run up a cricket score. So, yeah, you've got to fancy Man City here because of the quality, but I still think it will go under 4.5 as so many of their away wins have. So, yeah, that's my pick too.
Okay, Man City under 4.5 goals, 181. Yeah, interesting. Those couple of halftime, full-time prices. Draw halftime, City full-time, 4.3. But that should fill out into around 4.8, 4.9 on Matchbook. One that caught my eye: Wolves halftime, City full-time. I think we saw that against West Ham, 27.0. And again, maybe check the Matchbook betting exchange before the off. You could get something in the early 30s, maybe worth a couple of quid there. We will go to our third game here, which is Tottenham Hotspur versus Liverpool, probably the game of the weekend, Saturday 5:30, and take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook betting exchange. You can back Spurs 3.1 at home to Liverpool, 2.26 at Liverpool. Our draw is 4.1. Both teams to score. Yes, another extraordinary short price here, 140 or 139. It's been clipped into, but it should fill out into about 142. The Asian handicap line sees Spurs get a quarter of a goal head start at even money, and the goal line is 3.5, and that's only 1.88 on the under 3.5. So yeah, Adrian, take it away. It was hard not to be impressed with Tottenham overall in terms of how they played against Arsenal. Will this Liverpool style coming to Tottenham Stadium suit an Ange Postecoglou side at home this Saturday?
We'll find out, won't we? I was very impressed with Tottenham. It's not easy for me to say that, but I've had to say it earlier on in the week, and I'll repeat it now. That was a very, very good Spurs performance. They defended excellently, better than I thought they were capable of with the back four. Bissouma was just tremendous yet again, and obviously Maddison and Maddison's relationship with Son helped them score a couple of goals. Look, when you isolate the match, when you take away some of those key moments, you think about it. Spurs were gifted both the goals, really, and Arsenal missed pretty much an open goal with Gabriel Jesus, and Spurs were at their very best, and it was still a draw. So I think they've got a way to go. I don't think they're quite at Liverpool's level just yet. Tottenham Hotspur, I'd make Liverpool slight favourites here. But they're competitive, and I couldn't have been more impressed with them. This match feels like goals, doesn't it? I mean, if you're finding it hard to pick Spurs or Liverpool like I am, then I think you've got to go down the goals route. I mean, both teams' score is incredibly short for a reason. Spurs have scored at least 2 in every game so far. Liverpool come into this one having scored at least 3 in 3 successive games. They've never done that under Klopp. They've never got to 4 under Klopp. Last time Liverpool scored more than 3, 4 games in a row, it was Brendan Rodgers 9 years ago. So you have to go a long, long way back to a very different Liverpool side before they've sort of had that consistent output of goals. And you wouldn't bet against Tottenham because you feel that they will be bold and brave and adventurous, and that Klopp's pressing machine might undo them at times. But having watched them in the flesh, I also think that Spurs can slice through Liverpool, who still don't have a watertight midfield. It's a better one at the moment. It's more energetic. It's got more legs, but it's not defensively solid. And I don't think their back four are solid either. So I could absolutely see both teams scoring here. In fact, I'd be really, really surprised if they don't. And I can't pick one above the other. So I'm going to go with a draw. So if you pair the draw and both teams to score, it comes out lovely. It comes out at a beautiful price of 4.7. And for me, a 1-1 or a 2-2 are the most likely scorelines, in my opinion. That looking at it, possibly the 2-2. So yeah, that's where I'm going. I mean, Son and Maddison, great combination. Looking at Nunez and Salah, they're linking up. They're creating a chance for each other once every 29 minutes at the moment. So that's going some. That is really up there between two players looking after one another on the pitch. So yeah, it's going to be an absolute cracker. Both managers will go for it. And it'll be a little bit of a shootout like it was at Emirates Stadium last weekend. So yeah, draw and both teams to score. So in effect, 1-1, 2-2, or maybe even 3-3. And it's a 4.7. So I like it. I know it's a little bit of a long shot, but I can see it landing.
Why not? And Mark, you're in similar agreement in terms of the goals angle, and I'm guessing you're similar lines in terms of what Adrian said about picking a winner here, because in fairness, I looked at this earlier and I couldn't really separate the two in terms of one's value than the other. I think Liverpool probably deserved slight fouls.
Yeah, they are. Do you want to back them at those kind of prices, knowing their away day struggles in the past 12 months? Not for me. I think they do deserve to be favourites. They might even contract a little bit further actually before kickoff, because if you go back to these two and their meeting last year, Spurs I think were around 3.6, 3.7 that day. So that's a decent shift when you consider there's no Harry Kane either, who used to move the market massively in Spurs' favour or opposite when he was missing. So I think that's testament to the work that Tottenham have been doing under Ange Postecoglou, the work on the culture, the mindset, the belief, ingraining the game plan in those players. And I just think he just deserves so much credit. I know it's small samples, it's still very early of the season, but you've got at least 3 players in that game last weekend against Arsenal who were nowhere to be seen under previous regimes, and he's brought them into the side, and he's made mountains out of those players, Bissouma and Sarr in particular, a doggy fullback as well. Just tremendous work from such a a couple of months on the training pitch. But yeah, I think Spurs will fancy their chances, but Liverpool will equally too. From a Liverpool perspective, as Adrian alluded to, still having their own sort of transition, their own rebuild of that midfield. They're still looking vulnerable as well. These slow starts that keep cropping up. They're conceding early goals, as they have done for a long, long time now. It's not just this season, but even against West Ham last weekend, Alisson makes an outrageous save, and Mikel Antonio misses a great opportunity. West Ham could have scored a couple of goals, at least in their first half, at Anfield. Bournemouth did the same at Anfield. So, you consider normally a bit more vulnerable away from Anfield. Tottenham should fancy their chances, but ultimately, Liverpool's firepower is as good as any in the planet, really. And I think that midfield is starting to click into place. McAllister, Szoboszlai's goal in midweek. Curtis Jones has had an influence as well. So they're not going to be intimidated by Tottenham. They'll fancy their chances. They're going to play with the handbrake off and really go for it. So expecting goals, expecting entertainment. Happy to just overlook the major markets, the 1x2 and the handicap, because as a neutral, I want to cheer on goals. I'm expecting goals. So I'll back over 3.5 goals again here at 2.06. 5 of Liverpool's first 6 Premier League games have seen BTTS. 4 of Spurs' matches have followed suit. Both teams have delivered at least over 3.5 goals in half of their 6 matches so far as well. Another 2-2, 3-1 either way wouldn't be a huge surprise. The XG averages for both sides are well above the 3.3 mark. And as Adrian said as well, Spurs have scored twice or more in all 6 under Postecoglou. Liverpool have scored twice or more themselves in 5 of their opening 6 games. I think a 2-2 is well within range yet again. So looks to be goal heavy. I'll take the odds against offering for over 3.5 goals.
Okay, 2.06 over 3.5 goals. And we'll go that for the podcast selection. But good shout out to draw and both teams to score yes for Adrian at 4.7. So fascinating game. It's not a sly. I think it's going to be an absolute game changer for Liverpool. They really look firing in that midfield.
Yeah,
We've got
Spurs were so aggressive. Just very quickly, Spurs were
Yeah.
so aggressive at Arsenal, weren't they? They are far removed from the Tottenham that we know. They've got a bit more about them. This is the first real tough game, I would have said, of the tenure. If you put aside Man United or mid-table Man United, and they were super aggressive, and they'll be the same against Liverpool. Would surprise me if there's a little red in that game.
Okay.
To wait and see.
Keep an eye. It could be a fiery encounter, and there's some good atmosphere at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium now, which I haven't seen since the stadium's been built, to be fair. So Monday Night Football, we will go to Fulham versus Chelsea, and we'll take a look at the betting. They've had nothing to cheer, Mark, but I think finally they now have something to cheer. Fulham 3.95, Chelsea 2.08. The draw is 365. Both teams score yes. A lot tighter here, 175, and no is 2.12. The Asian handicap line sees Fulham get half a goal head start at 188, and the goal line is 2.5 and shaded slightly towards the under here, so expecting a tense game. Mark, up to you on this one, and where do you stand with Chelsea, because there's that debate about expected goals versus results, and Chelsea's expected goals by and large and their numbers have been very good this season, but you can't just keep losing games and drawing games, and I think they're bottom of the league. I think Everton overtook them in that calendar year table, which just shows you how badly they've been doing. I think, and the stat doing the rounds on Twitter is Leicester City have scored more goals in 2023 in the Premier League than Chelsea.
That's brilliant.
Where do I stand? Somewhere in between, really. There's a feeling that the same old problems continue to exist around Chelsea. I understand the argument towards the performance data and the underlying metrics have been strong, but that can be balanced out by the schedule, because Chelsea's schedule has been relatively kind so far, and that will have an impact in small samples. What I do find hard to grasp is, just with the eye test, you can see what looks to be a disjointed group, an inexperienced group lacking leadership thrown together. And I don't think it's any coincidence that smart minds, Potter and Pochettino, have both struggled to kind of get a semblance of a proper team together. I think that speaks volumes, really. I know they've been missing loads of players, loads of really impactful players too. They just look raw. They look like they lack composure. We've talked about it previously, but the decision-making and the execution has not been anywhere near as good. There has been some fleeting moments of real positive play, but it's been erratic. And you look at the squad that they've been able to select from in the last 2 games, there's not a huge amount there behind or outside of the starting 11, and that's going to be reduced even further this weekend with Nicholas Jackson suspended. Someone else is banned as well. But
Gusto.
I mean, Gusto's banned, yes, yeah. So it kind of beggars belief when you think they spent £1 billion in the last 12 months. It's just astonishing. In terms of the underlying numbers, they've had 91 shots this season, the same as Arsenal. Only 5 clubs have had more, but they've only scored 5 goals. And I think that is kind of combined with the schedule, but poor finishing, maybe some good defending, a bit of bad luck. But this has been going on for far too long now for Chelsea. You mentioned the calendar year table. Managed the fewest Premier League wins in 2023. They're also the lowest goal scorers in 2023. That's not just a 10, 20 game sample. It's over 30 fixtures now. It's not a coincidence, really. So I struggle to be pro Chelsea in this match, especially at those prices. I've kind of opposed them a few times now on the podcast, and I would do again. My issue is I don't really rate Fulham either. They're suffering their own constraints with Mitrovic leaving. Just scored 4 goals from 47 shots since he's departed. 2 of those goals came against Arsenal from mistakes and low percentage chances. Only Sheffield United have had fewer shots. Outside of Mitrovic, you've got Raul Jimenez now leading the line. He's just not the same player, is he, anymore? Mitrovic allowed them to outperform their metrics last year. That's not happening this time around. But Bert Leno's been a magician between the sticks, really. How he's managed to keep Fulham in games for the most part is a great credit to him, but also João Palhinha and his influence in midfield when he's available. Fulham, to me, are a much more impressive unit. For me, he's probably the most important player for any one club in the Premier League, João Palhinha. Without him, they're a shambles defensively. With him, they're monstrous in midfield. And I think they can be quite awkward opponents for Chelsea on Monday night. So my bet here was BTTS no, but I'm finding myself kind of erring towards Adrian's selection because the market has moved in that direction since I put my bet in on Wednesday. And that bet is under 2.5 goals. Consider Chelsea haven't got Jackson up front. You consider both clubs are struggling in the final third. And the stat that really most surprised me, but we are only 6 games into the campaign. The side with the most clean sheets, or the joint most clean sheets in the division, is Fulham. They've kept clean sheets in 3 of their 6 games. So I think, for me, the market is expecting goals. Obviously, Adrian started the show by sort of reeling off the goal-heavy nature of the Premier League this year, but this feels like a good option to go against goals, and the prices are nice. BTTS no is 2.12, but I think under 2.5 goals at 194 just gives you that extra room for manoeuvre, really. It does allow you to get that 1-1 and still get paid. So there's not a huge amount of difference between the prices. Originally, that under 2.5 goals was trading below 1.9. Now it's 1.94. Happy to kind of get that on board instead, rather than the BTS no I did suggest originally.
Yeah, Adrian, you're convincing Mark just by typing it in a document. That's a new one for me.
I'm very happy with that. Yeah, I mean, I've come a long way, haven't I?
Yeah, to be fair.
Yeah. Look, Chelsea matches under Pochettino are averaging 1.83 a game, the lowest in the Premier League. Fulham's the 3rd lowest. It's 2.5 per game involving them. 4 of Chelsea 6 have gone under. 3 of Fulham's 6 have gone under as well. So just a few stats to sort of back it up. I mean, Mark's covered it off, really. Chelsea are erratic inside the final third, aren't they? And Fulham don't have a striker, really. Raul Jimenez is, he's a shadow of the former player. And around that side, you're struggling to see who's going to score the goals for them on a consistent basis, aren't you? Palhinha is massive. He's such a good player. And the other signed him on a new contract, haven't they? Which obviously bumps up his wages until he inevitably ends up at Bayern Munich, where he was, of course, pictured in that shirt. Or he had his photos done, didn't he? So, I think that West London derby, Chelsea. How about this for a stat as well? Chelsea are winless in their last 18 Premier League matches against teams higher than them in the table. Fulham are higher than them in the table again. So you can't fancy Chelsea. You can't back Chelsea, I don't think. It takes a brave man to get on Chelsea's side here. I'm with Mark. I can't trust Fulham to win the game either. I think this could be 0-0 or 1-0 either way. Possibly 1-0, 1 apiece as well. So under 2.5 was a standout for me. And I thought it was a pretty good price. And I was close to making it my best bet, actually. It's my favourite bet of the 4 feature games this week, for sure.
Okay, under 2.5 goals, 1.92. And Ben Chilwell also injured. Owen McIntosh in the YouTube comments has just said he went off with a hamstring injury there last night. So that's another big loss for Chelsea. So we'll lock in that under 2.5 goals at 192. And we'll go to EFL picks here. And Adrian, take it away. You've got 2 selections here on our EFL bets.
Yeah, let's go with Lincoln City at home to Cheltenham this weekend. Now, Cheltenham, you might have seen, broke a record last weekend. They've now got 9 matches at the start of this season without scoring a single goal. It's just getting beyond the joke now, really, for Cheltenham. They've had 11 matches in all competitions, failed to score in 10 of those 11. The one goal they've scored in the EFL trophy was an own goal. so there's no Cheltenham player has registered a goal so far this season. It is absolutely bonkers. They've got no manager. Wade Elliott's gone. They're interviewing this week. They may make an appointment before the weekend, but I think whoever takes the job will probably be in the stand. So it's a tough away game for them. And I've played in teams where you've been struggling for goals. Not this bad, but I've played in teams where you might have gone a couple of games or 2 or 3 games where you haven't scored, and it starts to get into your mind, and it can drain confidence very, very quickly. You just think, where is the next goal coming from? It can impact your entire performance. So I feel for Cheltenham at the moment. Lincoln are having a decent start at home. They're almost always strong. They've had 2 wins and a draw, so they're unbeaten at Sincil Bank this year. And their goal difference is scored 7, conceded 1. So they've been really, really solid. So this isn't the sort of away game Cheltenham want when they're desperately in search of goals, because Lincoln are pretty solid. Lincoln have scored in their last 7 games as well. So look, if Lincoln might only need one goal to win this game based on what we've seen so far. So Lincoln and under 3.5 is where I'm going. 7 of 8 Lincoln games have gone under 3.5 this season. And Cheltenham away from home have been involved in a lot of dull games, a lot of 1-0 defeats. They've got a 0-0 in there as well. So Cheltenham are actually quite solid on the road, but they just can't score. So for me, it really stands out, as in, surely you'd back Lincoln because of their home record, because of how bad Cheltenham are. And surely you'd go under 3.5 based on the data as well. And it comes out at a lovely price for me, 2.28. So yeah, I'm happy to go along with this bet.
Okay, Lincoln and under 3.5, currently 2.28 as Adrian alluded to, versus Cheltenham. And your second selection, Adrian, is Forest Green to beat Morecambe at home. 2.12 we have.
Yeah, you might be thinking 2.12 at home to Morecambe, who aren't that good. Well, the reason is they've lost every home game, Forest Green, so far. They've been terrible at home. So why am I backing them? Well, these things can't last forever. They cannot last forever. And Forest Green aren't that bad. They're not that bad aside this year. They got David Horseman in charge. Troy Deeney is part of the coaching staff. And everything I've been seeing with my eyes and reading about them is that they've been on the wrong end of some quite unlucky results of late, and that the performance levels have shot up massively. They only just lost 4-3 at Notts County last weekend. And Notts County were full of praise for the quality of Forest Green's play, of their football. And I just feel that and away from home, they've been very good throughout this season. It's just, for whatever reason, on their own patch, it hasn't happened for them. Well, Morecambe will not bring very many fans. It's not going to be very intimidating. It's going to feel like a little bit like a non-league game. It'll be a small crowd there. And this is their opportunity, because Morecambe have been terrible away from home for a long, long time. They have lost 18 of their last 26 away games since the start of last season. That's bad. That's really bad. They lost all 3 so far this season. They've let in at least 2 every single time, Morecambe, on the road this year. And since the start of last season on the road, they've blanked in half of the games as well. So look, Forest Green might only need 1 goal to win the match. I just think, having had such a bad start at home, but the form is okay, fast improving, this is their moment. They have to win this game at home to a pretty weak Morecambe side that are just fragile on the road. 2.12, I think, is a better price than it should be, given Morecambe's record.
Okay, let's take on that bad home record. Forest Green 2.12, the selection for Adrian. Mark, you have a selection here in League Two, which I have to say is probably the most exciting in terms of title race, promotion race, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Gillingham, for example, have scored 8 goals in 9 games and they're second in League Two, which is very unsustainable, you would presume. But there you go, they're still there after 9 games. Wrexham 7, they're taking on Crewe Alexander 6th. The likes of James McLean have gone to Wrexham. They're building a squad. It's just a case of when will they time their run to make sure they get automatic promotion this year.
Yeah, it might be. I think the League Two is incredibly competitive this year. It's by far the standout division of the EFL for me, especially in terms of goals so far, at least 3.06 goals per game in League Two. And I think Wrexham and Crewe are very heavy contributors to that. And I'm expecting their match to be very fun, very open, and very high scoring. Both Wrexham and Crewe have each scored at least twice in 5 of their opening 9 games. They've only failed to score once each this season. The issue is defensively. Wrexham have conceded twice or more, 4 times. Crewe have shipped 2 or more goals on 5 occasions, and they've combined to keep just 2 clean sheets between them. So over 2.5 goals and both teams to score. Looks like a nice way in at 1.91. Wrexham obviously coming back off that 5-0 shellacking at Stockport last weekend, but they're back at the racecourse ground where things tend to be bonkers. And if I read out you their results so far at home this season, 2-1, 3-0, 4-2, 3-5, and 5-5. Yes. So they'll expect to score twice here. Of course they will, but you just cannot rule Crewe out from contributing. On the road, they've had a 2-2, a 2-2, a 4-1, and a 1-0. They've just been fantastic fun to follow. 8 of 9 have gone over. 7 of 9 have gone over 3.5. BTTS has landed in 8 of those 9. And if you look at the both teams, you look at their average XG figures, both are seeing way above 2.9 per game. So quite happy to support a goal-heavy game. I think both teams contribute, and we should be seeing 3-4 goals in this fixture.
Yeah. Almost a derby, isn't it? It's not too far away. I was near Wrexham the other week and drove past Crewe en route. So yeah, it's should be quite a good atmosphere.
Crewe's rivals are, because obviously Wrexham hate Chester, but that's kind of died off a bit recently, so not sure about that.
I don't think this is steeped in history, Wrexham Crewe, but but they're not too far away from each other.
It might be the start of it if they're in the running for League Two promotion. Yeah, staggering that they've scored 24 goals compared to say the 8 goals or 21 goals. But yeah, League Two is the league to watch, as Mark has alluded to there. So 3 selections in our EFL section. We'll go to European bets, and one of Mark's 2 Matchbook Insights picks is here. So do check out insights.matchbook.com for Mark's Insights picks. Take it away here in Germany, Mark. Union Berlin, over 2.5 goals.
Yeah, kind of just repeating old stuff really, but Bundesliga has just been full of goals, 3.64 goals this season, 73% of games going over. So I think the 183 on over 2.5 goals. And Heidenheim host Union looks like a nice way in. Heidenheim, newly promoted, their first campaign in the Bundesliga, 1 win from their opening 5, 3 defeats. The issue is defensively, they are pretty atrocious at the back. They've already conceded 13 goals. All 5 of their opponents have scored at least twice against them. But that's not the key stat. The key stat here is 4 of those 5 opponents have generated an expected goals tally of at least 2.95 against Heidenheim already this season. So they're giving up at least 3 expected goals per game, almost on every occasion since promotion. So that's going to obviously impact their ability to pick up results. However, they have scored in 4 or 5. They've scored twice or more in 3 of those 5, including both of their home games. They've actually generated an XG tally of their own, greater than 2 in 3 of those 5 fixtures. But at home, they've been beaten 3-2 by Hoffenheim before beating Bremen 4-2. They scored at Leverkusen last week. They actually scored twice against Dortmund as well. They are a threat from set pieces, and being at home, they will fancy their chances because Union have been pretty all over the place this season. They started the season with back-to-back 4-1 wins. They've since lost 3 on the spin, lost as well to Real Madrid in the Champions League, but they've conceded multiple goals in each of those 3 Bundesliga defeats. 4 of those 5 games have gone over 2.5 goals, and away from home, they've kept just 5 clean sheets in 19, but they have scored in 14 of those. So I think over 2.5 goals at 183 looks a sensible selection anyhow, but it's just made even more so when you consider Heidenheim's 5 games have averaged 4.73 expected goals. So for me, this is a 1.7 shot at best. So happy to get on board.
183 seems quite big, over 2.5 goals. Heidenheim home to Union Berlin. We'll go to our best long shot section here, which has 2 wins.
Just getting on that one, mate.
No way that doesn't start below 1.7 by kickoff, by the way. So if you are watching on the live stream or listening to the podcast early in the week, do get on that if you can. Long shots record, 2 wins and 10 defeats here, but I guess it shows how profitable it can be betting on long shots in the long run here, because we'd be plus £66 based on the £20 stake, including that 2% commission. So the guys are playing with the profit money here so far. So I thought that was very interesting. So Adrian, hand it over to you. It's a correct score angle here this weekend.
Yeah, would you a winner? Yeah, I think this could be the weekend where we get another one. I was looking at, I delved a little bit into, I wanted to do a correct score. So I looked right across the EFL. What are the most popular score lines this season? Well, the most popular by a little distance actually is a surprising one. It's 1-1. 1-1 is consistent across every league. In the Championship, we've had 12. League One's had 13. League Two has had 14 1-1 draws already, which is the most popular scoreline in that division. So I just looked through the cards and I thought, what's the most 1-1 game I can see? And it's Wycombe Carlisle. For a number of reasons, Carlisle have been the draw specialists early on this season. 4 draws already. 3 of those have been 1 apiece. They've not conceded more than 2 goals in a game yet. They've not got very many points, Carlisle, because they don't score that often, but they're not getting heavily beaten. They're not open either. So it's not too much of a stretch to think that they'll go to Wycombe and let in 1 goal. Games at Wycombe involving Wycombe have been relatively low scoring, 5 of 8 unders. Carlisle games, 8 of 9 have gone under 2.5. So, I was looking at the goal difference as well for Wycombe. It's 5-5 across 4 home games, which points towards a possible 1 apiece. This is a very, very similar outlook for Carlisle in terms of their away games and what their goal difference is. So, I'm following the trend of what is a very popular scoreline this season. Not many people bet on the draws, do they? But they're actually landing quite a lot across the EFL in the early weeks of the season, in particular 1 apiece. And this game, to me anyway, screams 1-1. Wycombe Carlisle 7.5.
Okay, 7.5 currently, maybe a little bit bigger, closer to kickoff as well. So do check out the Matchbook betting exchange. And Mark, for you, you're taking on Harry Kane's Bayern Munich here with Leipzig, who've already defeated them, of course, in the Super Cup, or the equivalent of the Community Shield. So take it away on your thoughts on this selection.
Yeah, well, I was looking around Europe, looking at potential underdogs to support. I was considering Lecce at 4.3 at home to Napoli, but then I saw Leipzig at 3.7 at home to Bayern. So not a huge amount of difference between the 2 teams. Yet the difference in quality between Leipzig and Bayern is much closer than that of Lecce versus Napoli. So it almost felt like an obvious selection here. To get it above the threshold of 4-1, I believe your sort of lowest price offering is. I've included both teams to score because obviously you always expect Bayern Munich to score. You always expect goals in these games between the big teams in Germany. But as you mentioned, Leipzig did win the Super Cup fixture earlier this season. They've also won the last Bundesliga fixture away at the Allianz Arena towards the end of last season too. And their home record is super strong under Marco Rosa, 14 wins from 17 Bundesliga matches. Now, Bayern have already been held at home by Leverkusen in a fantastic match. They didn't exactly shoot the lights out when beating Manchester United in Munich either, did they? They conceded 3 goals that day. Their defence can be got at, and there is defensive issues in the camp at the minute. They started their Pokal match in midweek with Mazraoui and Goretzka starting at centre-half. Now, they are expecting Upamecano and Kim to be back in the team for the weekends, but neither sound like they're going to be 100%. So I'm not sold on the defensive structure when all players are fit and available at the minute anyhow. Not sold on the midfield balance either, but if any of those players aren't at 100%, there is an opportunity here for Leipzig to turn them over and make them pay. There's no Dani Olmo for Leipzig, which is a bit of a shame, but they do have so much attacking firepower and ability elsewhere. Benjamin Sesko came in midweek in a much-changed team in the Pokal and scored twice. He's a huge talent, just kind of goes to show what they have available in reserve. So not expecting it to be low scoring, obviously, but you can back Leipzig to win and both teams to score at 4-1.
Yeah, Mark, a little bit bigger now, 5.4 on the Matchbook betting exchange. So we'll lock that in. the bigger price, 5.4 for Mark's selection and 7.5 for Adrian's in the best long shot section. And we'll go to the best bet section, another profitable section this season. Best bet record, it's 9 wins, 3 defeats, plus £94 if you had a £20 stake on each on the Matchbook betting exchange, including that 2% commission. So that's very profitable. Mark, we'll head over to you. So you have a best bet here in Bundesliga 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah. Osnabrück against Kaiserslautern.
Here we go.
It's not been quite as goal heavy as the top flight, but still very entertaining in the second tier. 3.29 goals per game, 63% of matches going over, 65% of matches seeing both teams scoring. I'm expecting this match to be pretty goal heavy. Newly promoted Osnabrück have kind of flirted between the second and third tiers now over the last 2 decades, really. They had a difficult start to the season. I watched them get slammed 7-0 by Hanover a couple of weeks ago.
You watched Osnabrück v Hanover?
I did, yeah.
I mean, come on, Adrian. Mark. What is going on here?
I've got a bet on the game, Adrian. I like to see it unfold. So
you don't have to explain yourself, Mark.
I couldn't sit here and be quiet at this. Osnabrück, goodness me. In fact, I applaud you. I really do.
You should see some of the shite I watch at a weekend. But, there we go. Yeah, they look like a team that was sort of doomed and ready to go back down, but they've had a slight revival. And last weekend they beat Hamburg, which is quite significant, and they beat them at home. And at home they are offering a bit of a threat. They scored twice or more in 3 of their 4 home fixtures. They are without a clean sheet across all venues though this season, so they're still bottom. But I think that victory will give them a renewed hope, belief that they can compete at this level. They're playing a Kaiserslautern side who have, since winning the title in '98, they've had a few tough times in the last decade, even dropped down to the 3rd tier, but they're on the way back up. They should be contenders for a top 3 finish this season. They started the season with back-to-back defeats, but they've since earned 13 points from 5 games, scoring 12 goals. They've actually seen both teams score in 6 of 7. They've seen over 2.5 goals in 6 of 7. The only match that didn't go over 2.5 goals ended 1-1. Osnabrück have seen 5 of 7 go over 2.5 goals as well. I think a repeat is well within reach. Kaiserslautern should score a couple of goals themselves, but defensively, they're not all that just yet. And Osnabrück have shown at home that they can score goals themselves. So, yeah, over 2.5 goals at 175 just look like a bit of a no-brainer.
Okay, say no more, Mark. That is the best bet. There you go. Sharon Ball on YouTube also watched the game as well, Adrian. So maybe we're the odd people out.
I mean,
small sample of 4.
Get my head around. And you're married and you've got a child. This is remarkable that you find time to watch.
It's work, Adrian.
Yeah, work. That's my excuse to watch any sporting event. So it's great when you have all the sports covered. So Mark really has to delve deep into the football, of course. And this is, Adrian, your best bet is a side that people won't be surprised. You've probably seen every minute for the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 seasons, or maybe beyond, maybe every minute of every game since you left the club, maybe 20, 30 years of
not quite that long. I'd say almost 10 or 12 years. Yeah, I would say so. So
take it away for your best bet and why this is a best bet. But you are slightly nervous about the lineup, obviously. Yeah,
I mean, I'm slightly worried about Bukayo Saka's availability. Obviously, I think he's played 84 consecutive matches. He is a fitness stout, but Arsenal's away form has been outstanding. Arsenal have been the best away side in the country since the start of last season. 14 wins in their last 21 away games, and 12 of those wins have been under 4.5 goals, which is why I'm leaning towards that. The only times they won, but it wasn't under, were the 4-2 wins at Brighton and Aston Villa, respectively. They've just got into a groove, Arsenal, of going away from home, particularly in a match like this, controlling it through possession and just chipping away and doing enough to get the win. And they've kept a lot of clean sheets away from Emirates Stadium, where, it's chalk and cheese, really. The games at Emirates are very chaotic, end-to-end. Arsenal focus heavily on outscoring the opposition, maybe switch off defensively at times. Away, they're the opposite. They're very hard to break down and have been in full control in most games. Not all. We all remember the Forest defeat last season, 1 or 2 others. But in general, Arsenal can be trusted on the road. I'm a bit nervous about tipping them here, obviously, because I don't want to jinx it. But I do look at the form and think, well, they're solid at the moment, unbeaten. I think that some players are coming into good form. I think Jesus is ready to explode. I think that Odegaard is in good nick, even though he was quiet in the second half of that derby. It's in terrific form. Might see the return of Trossard or Martinelli for this game as well. Bournemouth haven't really got going yet. They've had a tough schedule, haven't they, under Iraola? But we haven't seen a massive change, certainly not in terms of results. They lost 9 home games last season. They haven't won at all this season. Creditable draws against Chelsea and West Ham, well beaten by Tottenham Hotspur. And I would expect Arsenal to go down to that Vitality Stadium a little bit like Spurs did and come out comfortable winners. I think that they've got more than enough to win this game. Arsenal, you ask 100 people, 99 of them at least would back Arsenal in this game, and then you're just thinking, well, under 4.5 feels fair enough. Bournemouth are a little bit more solid defensively under Iraola, who defends from the front much, much better than they did before. But, they're unlikely to score multiple goals in the game against Arsenal, even if they do get one. So, yeah, I think Arsenal under 4.5 feels about right. I do think that the big guns on the road, as with City at Wolves, the big guns on the road to bottom half teams, the win and the under 4.5 is a pretty solid returner. And I'm going to go there again.
Yeah, I was just thinking that there. So it's a big jump from 154 to include the under 4.5 goals. Arsenal still on the road, so lock that in. Maybe that Man City and Arsenal ones are the good bets this weekend. So my thanks to Adrian and Mark. For those that always ask about my Super Sunday ratings and what I rate the Super Sunday, this potentially is the worst one of the season because we've only got one game, which means 5 points is automatically gone because there's no 4:30 game. And I'm going to rate Forest and Brentford a 2 out of 5. So therefore, it's a 2 out of 10 Super Sunday. It clears the way for a full day of NFL with the London game and Red Zone. So I make no apologies for that rating. Don't at me on Twitter. My thanks to the guys, as always. We'll be back with Champions League football with Miguel Delaney on Monday. Really looking forward to that. And then back again for the Weekend Football Podcast, recording Thursday. So busy period as we lead up to the international break next weekend. So my thanks to the guys. We'll chat to you next week. Until then, enjoy the football, enjoy the betting. Bye-bye.